Hi, and welcome to ThreatTraq Essentials. We're going to take a look at some everyday cybersecurity lessons we can learn from this week's stories on ThreatTraq. I'm here with John Markley. How you doing, John?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Don.
Let's get right into it. Let's first talk about the story Stan brought to us. It was a study that was done about email infrastructure, about phishing email infrastructure. There's a lot of lessons that were learned from that. Tell me what we learned from there.
We actually learned quite a bit. I mean, we learned, the guys at Microsoft do a good job, and they kind of dug into the, what creates and how to maintain some of these, more complicated and more complex, down to the simple, email campaign structures. And they really say that, you can take stuff down, but it's going to come back. I think that's the one thing is you learn is that they're in this to make money, and they're making money. So a lot of times I think that the biggest lesson that we've learned is we have to protect ourselves. We have to recognize that these campaigns aren't going away, and we want to understand them, and we want to do what we can to shut it down, even temporarily. But in the end, the end user needs to to kind of be educated.
And since phishing emails are not going away, what are some basic principles we can tell people to protect themselves from those?
Yeah, it feels like a broken record, right? You don't click on links in the email. Typically you just don't do it. Or be real careful. Make sure that if you get an email and you're a little suspicious, especially if you're a little suspicious, hover over the address, make sure it's really the address you think it is. I mean, a lot of times the browsers and the email clients will tell you the real address. They don't install software except from trusted sources. It's those things that we tend to say over and over again, but people forget, and people get tempted to click that little link to see that neat little cat video or whatever.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the story Chris brought to us, which was about a European volleyball league that where they were storing sensitive personal information of some folks got exposed. Tell me how that happened.
Yeah, they didn't go into a lot of details about exactly how it happened. We do know that an Azure instance for this volleyball group out of Europe, when they registered journalists and players, they asked for identification, and they stored them. And unfortunately, they didn't store them. I think I even said on the program, you don't want to rely on security by obscurity, but you also don't want to give a roadmap to where the data is stored. And they actually put them in a location that was pretty obvious what was in it, in that directory on that Azure instance. And so, it's really more about telling, Chris did a good job of telling about the story, what happened, and really the fallout, of what, occurred in that particular incident.
So what's the lesson there about storing that kind of
information? Encrypt. I think that's the basic story is that, especially as we move to cloud, it's the same story. We certainly trust the cloud. We certainly think that more security occurs because of the cloud migrations that we're doing, but it doesn't mean that we just can't ignore the basics of encryption, authorization, authentication, those things, especially in those environments where we suspect that you're in a hurry to get to the cloud. You just can't take that shortcut and skip those steps.
And finally, you brought a story about a group of researchers who, I guess, kind of reverse engineered an Apple security system. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so the story is really kind of a neat one. And I think you hit it right on the head. Is these researchers from the Google Project Zero took a look at why some of the vulnerabilities that impacted Apple iMessage were no longer an issue for the newer versions, and they kind of reverse engineered the whole iMessage environment and found some new things that Apple has done to protect their consumers.
So I guess the lesson there would be like you always want to keep up to date on the software for your devices so that you can get those improvements.
Yeah, I don't think that can be stressed enough. Is maintain your software, your operating systems, whether it's Apple, Android, whatever, PCs, servers. Keep it up to date. Make sure all the patches are there, and just realize that when a security update occurs, there's somebody going to target it, the people that don't update, I mean, almost immediately. So just, you got to keep updated.
And it may even fix things that you didn't even know were wrong.
Yeah, and especially, you know, you will find, and it's hard to say this, but it's a lot of times, you know, with an update, there's lots of things that get patched from big to little, and little stuff is often not documented. It really isn't, because it's just too much, and even security things. And so when you talk about major release and operating system updates, you know, it's not only those things that may just combine and cascade to protect you, but also there's a lot of times the product manufacturer, the owner, they don't want to tell you all the problems because they don't want to make it susceptible. So sometimes, even though we like public and honest disclosure, sometimes you may want to just postpone it a little bit. And so those updates, you install it when you get it, and then maybe later on you find out, hey, I just protected myself 3 months, 6 months ago from this particular vulnerability.
Well, great. Thank you, John, for being here. Thank you all for watching. If you want to keep up on great advice like this, please like and subscribe below. And if you want to take a deeper look at any of these stories, click on the playlist below. We'll see you next time.